All right, I think it's time to get going, guys. I appreciate everybody being here this morning. Good to have multiple people back. We were depleted a little bit the last couple of classes, but still we had great participation. I appreciate everybody that was here that was able to participate. Y'all really missed a really good Holy Kiss class. You see Roger after class. We did finish up last time talking about, and we're not going to get into that hardly at all, but in regards to greeting one another and the Holy Kiss, how we talking about that, how that really was just going back to a closeness with each other, showing how much love and respect we're supposed to have for one another, showing that we should be at that level where we are able to, when we're addressing each other as you come through the door, that's something that's supposed to show care, not something as a breeze-by question, or it's supposed to be a true love and compassion for one another. When Paul was mentioning everybody by name, we talked about last time how those names meant something to him, whether it was Aquila and Priscilla or Barnabas, or it really didn't matter. Somebody had a tie-in that meant something special individually and to the church. And Paul recognized that, and everybody that was part of the church was special to him. That's the main takeaways we have from the last lesson. We didn't expect everybody to go up and start kissing everybody at church. We expected everybody to have the love and care for one another to be able to be that brother and sister to each other. We talked about last time that the brother and sister, I think we really breeze by that and think, that's a title that's given once you become a Christian. Certainly it is. We do become brothers and sisters when we become Christians, but I think sometimes we forget to live that out, that we are brothers. And when you're embracing your brother or your sister in your own family circles, or your really close friends, or your husband or wife or children, that you don't just breeze by them all the time and never show any affection or never kind of any kind of deep conversation. That's the closest people you're with. Well, that's how close we're supposed to try and get to with each other here at this congregation and everywhere. Yes. And we talked about last time, some people may never get to that level. We should all be able to get to the level where we should be able to be there for one another, whether that's a brother's needing us because they're in sin, a brother's needing us because they need us to do something for them, and we don't have the ability to reach out, we don't have the ability to actually show that care for each other. That's what that lesson was really all about, was how much do you know each person here? How much do you know any of them here? Think of the person that you think is closest to you in this church, and how really close are you with them? Close enough to have a conversation that kind of rotates every so often in regards to, did you see who won the sports game, or did you see how's your brother doing? How's your family doing? Those are just kind of surface things. We don't. How often do you really dig deep and really have that closeness with each other? So that's where we left off with greeting one another last time. Like I said, Roger had some really good points last time too. That's why I mentioned him. Within regards to the specificity of the names that were mentioned, and how important that is to actually, mention somebody by name. That's why Paul did it. Whenever how much more special you make somebody feel when you do that. How much more special it is to actually call somebody or to actually talk to them face to face versus texting, or cards and everything are great. We talked about that last time, and sometimes that's the only thing we can do depending on how far they are from us and everything. But there's just something more special about face to face and showing that one-on-one care and devotion to each other. Does anybody have anything else before we get into honoring one another? Oh, Carol, what's that? Go ahead. It was. You mean here? In the Bible. No. No, he's not? No. Jesus used it? Yes. Okay. With disciples? Yes. Jesus doesn't use the word holy kiss like Paul did. But I think that's believed because, like you said, that was very much a custom back then. And we talked about this last time, which is a good point. We were talking about bad examples, how Judas gave the bad example of a kiss. But that also led us to the conclusion that Judas more than likely exchanged holy kisses with Jesus quite often, because it seemed very natural when it happened, when it was more of a greeting. He was using it. Jesus knew what he was doing, but Peter, who was standing with him, did not know technically that that was probably a normal greeting between Judas and Jesus. That we said they walked together 3 years. They bled together 3 years. They slept on rocks together 3 years. They were close. So whenever that took place, he used the normal holy kiss that he did as a complete different thing here, an indicator to betray Jesus. Kind of ironic what way he did that. But I'm guessing the first 100 holy kisses he did with Jesus, first 100 greetings he did were of that good nature. And then he used this last one here for betrayal. So yes, I do believe that was still the custom with Jesus and his disciples. Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm saying I'm not trying to bring this up again. I'm just trying to bring it up for. I'm just trying to bring it up for example, because I was trying to get something that hit more home to us right when we ended class last time. But when we were talking about care and actually getting to a level of where it hurts us when even somebody is leaving the group or hurting us. I was telling what we brought up Sean, Day, and Bain last time of when all that happened. I'm sorry. I'm not getting into it, but that's how I know that this group gets to levels more than surface with each other. I really didn't see anybody at their departure that didn't really have a tear on their face, didn't have a care, and didn't have a love for those two people because of the nature of Aquila and Priscilla that they brought to this church, and how much they didn't bring something to a group. They brought something to each of us individually for how they, how warm they were to each one of us, and that was reciprocated. That's how Paul was with, whoever mentioned that a second ago, with Ephesus or whatever. That group and all those Christians were so close. You can see when Paul was leaving some of these churches how saddened they were and how much they were crying and sad and cried with him and prayed with him. That's a closeness beyond just how much he impacted a church. It's close as he had a connection with with the individuals there. That's where we're supposed to be. Okay, anything else before we go on to honoring one another? Okay, so let's go on to, and moving on to lesson 6, page 25 in your books. If somebody could please read Romans 13:7 for me to kick off here.
Render therefore to all their due, taxes to whom taxes are due, customs to whom customs, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor.
Okay. Paying taxes, that was a big thing in regards to Romans. Why would that be, Mickey? Who was on the coin? Caesar. The tax imposed was a big deal back then. Everything the Romans did was in way to kind of put the people in subjection to them. They were very much a domineering society, so they expected respect. We're told in this verse right here, if we owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. All that is a form of respect to our government, which we'll get to in a second. That's one of our verses here in a second. But when you think of respect for people or for anything, what comes to your mind? What would y'all give as somewhat of your definition of respect? Okay. Okay. Anything else? So, very good. The writer here actually says we are to esteem them or respect them as those who have value. And as we'll get to, that ties in with all Christians having equal value before us. As in, we should value every Christian no matter what their background, what they bring to the table, talent-wise, no matter how old or young. We're going to get to in this lesson that respect and value we have toward each other is equal before God. It's supposed to be equal before us. So it's our responsibility to make certain that we understand that principle. We're supposed to have a mutual respect. We are supposed to have with fellow disciples of Christ. As Carol pointed out, that's something that we all have to work to earn and achieve with each other. It's not something that's just going to happen if we can't just expect that overnight we're gonna start treating everybody the same way if we don't work at it. If you have somebody like we talked about before that somewhat gets on your nerves or bothers you a little bit, whether it's somebody at church, somebody at work, somebody wherever, how much respect do you have for that person on a daily basis, and how much care do you show to them compared to the next person? We're going to get into different roles or different types of respect here between work, between God, between just our fellow man, between government, and see how that ties in. Anybody else got anything on respect before we move on? Okay, let's talk about God's honor role. We're going to dive into all these verses you got in your packet here. So there are numerous people the Bible teaches we're to give honor and respect to, as talked about. Here's a chunk of scriptures that that shows who are we to honor and how we are to honor. So as we read these verses, whoever reads the verse, and so anybody else can chime in too, obviously, please give me who you think is being honored, and then I really want to dive into how they are honored, because I think there's multiple ways that you kind of look even outside the verses here on how some of these are honored. Because in the verse here, it always told you the who. It doesn't always tell you exactly how. So you kind of had to dig a little bit on how you are supposed to honor each of the subjects here. So if we go to John chapter 5, verse 22 and 23. If you don't know, if you want to read and don't know the exact answer and just don't know, that's fine. You can still read. I'm not going to force you to answer the question, but if you just want to read, that's fine. But whoever wants to read John chapter 5, verse 22 through 23, please. Okay, who is being honored here? Who's being respected? Very good. Did anybody just write the Son? That was kind of a trick one. Okay, you wouldn't have been wrong if you wrote the Son. Okay, because I think it is directed toward the Son, but there is two different people getting respected here, Father and the Son. And how so? Okay, so the answer to honoring the Son is, how do we honor the Son? Is how we honor God. Well, then we got to know how to honor God. How do we honor God? Okay, what's some other ways we can honor God? Very good, very good. What else? Very good. I had that one written down as well. Verse 24, honoring His word, going with what Mom said too, keeping His commandment. Do we have to always honor God and or the Father and the Son at the same time? Is it possible to honor one, not honor the other? Package deal, right? So because Jesus is the Son of God, false teaching about Him would dishonor Him at the same time dishonoring the Father's commandments. Somehow in this society, the idea of obeying God has kind of fallen out of favor in the religious world. Let me explain what I mean by that. There's a lot of religious people, and there's a lot of people who go to church every Sunday, and there's a lot of people who say they do worship God and love God. But they want to believe God and somewhat follow His commandments, and they don't want to be a main participant in their own or anybody else's around them salvation. They kind of want to sit by the wayside and enjoy the benefits of saying they're going to church and saying they're being a part of all these religious clubs or organizations or things they do at church for the community and everything else. But then outside the doors, grace saves us. So I can put other priorities in place because I have God. I've allowed God. I've accepted God in my life. I've accepted Jesus into my life. So somewhere along the wayside here, the acts and true nature of actually serving God, giving Him that respect, has fallen out. God expects true obedience to His word. I mean, we talked about before, faith without works is dead. Jesus taught in Matthew 7:21, not everyone says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter in the kingdom of heaven, but he who does what? Keyword, does the will of my Father. Okay, that's a continuing action. In Hebrews 5:9, it says the Christ is described as the source of eternal salvation for all who obey Him. And once again, it's not belief. It's not just a act of believing in Him. It's not just something you do one time and then you're covered. It's a continuous thing. And then in John 12:48 it says, "There's a judge for one who rejects me and does not accept my words. That very word which I will condemn him on the last day." God did not reveal to us His word through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit and warn us that we will be judged by it, only to tell us that we don't have to actually do it. So the way sometimes the religious world worships, sometimes the way we may worship, is a little contradictory when we think that we're true believers, true followers of God, and said we're allowing. We all agree that the Word's going to judge us, but yet we don't always want to follow what the Word's saying. So by how we follow the gospel, how we continuously serve God each day, that is the honor and respect that He's wanting. He's wanting true obedience, true followers, true worshipers, true soldiers who are trying to help each other to get to that goal. Okay, any more? Very good. Solomon, it's a good example. Solomon, for sure, fell into this trap, did he not? Of thinking he could go through a chunk of his life of doing what he wanted to do, not serving God, because he'd already put in the work. You know, he'd already shown his test of true wisdom, and God blessed him, and he knew God loved him. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that he still didn't know that was potentially wrong, but he definitely got lax in how he was, in how the first part of his life how he served God, and then a second chunk of his life how he blew that off, and he finally realized toward the end of his life how wrong he was. Very good, very good. Anything else about honoring God? Very good. Just like Jesus' package deal, serving Jesus is a package deal with serving the Father. Serving others is the package deal. If we don't serve others, we can't expect to be serving God. That's all part of it. That's all part of it. We're gonna get to a couple verses here in a little bit to talk about serving others as well. Anything else? Okay, let's roll on to Romans 12:10. Whoever's got that can go ahead and read that, please. Actually, read verse 9 and 10, please. 12, 9, and 10.
Let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor.
Okay, Michael. Who's our subject here?
What's that?
Who's our subject here?
One another?
Okay. One another, as in one another everywhere, or Christians?
Talks about brotherly affection, so I assume he's talking about within the body.
Very good. That's what I gathered as well. How are we supposed to be devoted to one another in brotherly love? How are we supposed to respect and honor each other?
I heard someone say one time that I think this is the only verse anywhere in Scripture where you find where you've got the command to try to outdo somebody in anything. Is that we're outdoing one another and showing honor. Kind of like that idea. It's the only thing that I'm trying to one up my brother. If I'm gonna be better, show him more honor than he shows me.
Very good. One up each other in showing honor, not one up each other in trying to gain the honor. As we'll get to later, we'll see some bad examples. Probably not. We might not get that today. We might get that Wednesday, but some bad examples of trying to gain honor. What else? What's some other examples of how we should show brotherly love and show respect to our brothers? Very good. We talked about a second ago that every brother has a uniqueness. Every brother or sister has a uniqueness. They all have an ability. That we were talking about in the greeting class last time about, I just mentioned a second ago, the special bond that we're supposed to have. Really can't call you my brother or my sister or call it brotherly love if I don't really have something there with you to you know, it's not. I can't be there just to do it like a machine, where somebody just tells me, you know, you need to go see these 5 people, and okay, I'll do it, and I'll make sure and bring them this and take care of this. That's you know, you've done some kind of duty, you've done some kind of, you know, duty that's been charged to you. There's really no part of brotherly love in that. Brotherly love goes deeper than that. That we really don't have with someone outside of God's family. Really should be a closeness that transcends any differences that we have. I really like the writer here says you don't have to like everything the brother says. You don't have to agree with everything, because you're not going to. We're all human here. We're imperfect Christians. So your respect to them is to allow them to speak, allow them to say those things, and not just blast them for something that you just don't fully agree with. At the same time, always making sure there's no error spoke. But we're supposed to have respect enough to allow people to showing love and decency to where we don't have some of these silly arguments that we can have, whether it's in service or class or something that can really cause problems. We're supposed to always show preference, as Michael said, toward one another. Not toward us getting out our point or what we want in this church. We're supposed to give preference and honor to each other. That's the kind of foundation we're supposed to have here. This church is supposed to be built on brotherly love. Anything else?
a blessing, and I mean, on and on. Enjoy each other's company and rejoice and weep together, and just the unity in verse 16. Uh, Help each other with their struggles in verse 17, and those would be really cool things to try to outdo each other in, pointing to each other. How could you not succeed if we're doing this?
Very good. Anything else? Okay, I think we hit the nail on the head. Like I said, with what Michael started with, it goes back. With brotherly love goes back to a sense of humbleness. To give preference to somebody other than yourself takes humbling yourself, takes being the Christian you're supposed to be, takes lowering yourself. So to have true brotherly love, we have to be willing to give preference to each other above some things that we think in some grand scheme may be important, but they're really not. Our brothers' needs are. Our sisters' needs are. But brotherly love means you need to. It is truly trying to show preference and outdoing each other for that. That doesn't mean you shirk things that you got to get done, but just where do your brothers and sisters fall on your list? And I'm not sure that if it only falls on a once a day or once a month list, it's just I don't know how much it's going to cut it. So preference is plugging a spot. To make sure that our brothers and sisters are at the top of our list. Okay, let's roll over to 1 Corinthians chapter 12. This is gonna. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any coincidence that this verse followed brotherly love. Somebody want to read 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 22 through 24?
On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, and on those parts of the body that we think less honorable, we bestow the greater honor, and our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty, which our more presentable parts do not require. But God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the part that lacked it.
Okay. So who are we talking to here? Who needs the honor and respect here? Okay, we're definitely talking about the individual of the church. Weaker brethren, okay. Define weaker. What does that mean? Okay. 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 Very good. Oh, um, all right. Anybody else on before we keep going on more how here weaker? Is everybody in agreement on the weaker here?
I mean, physically, sure, I get that, but it's not talking about physical body.
Okay.
So maybe we need to be more spiritual mind. Those that are spiritually struggling, there you go, struggling, or maybe a new convert that just got the basics figured out.
Very yes.
Or somebody that's just having a major meltdown in life, and things that are
Very good.
ESV says seem to be weaker. Doesn't mean are. We seem to be. Maybe it depends on what new convert. Somebody that hasn't been raised in church or whatever. I mean, they seem to be honored.
Ron was a fellow that started in Romans 14:5 here.
What now, Roger?
The individual in Romans 14:1.
Read that again.
As for the one who is weak in faith, go to him and not quarrel over opinions.
Okay.
Would that apply here?
That's what it, I think that's what we're saying, yes. So if we have, so those who are, and the writer here acknowledges a couple here, those who may, no matter what level they've been in, they're now at a spiritually weak point, whatever has caused that. Or could be babes in Christ, as Sam said, where we're talking about somebody who's spiritual maturity. We're talking about different levels of maturity. Somebody who are weaker spiritually just because of their maturity level in Christ.
If that being the case, if that's the case here, how you show honor? If it's, you don't prejudge, you don't wrongfully judge, maybe they're struggling with whatever, you don't just presume, oh, this is why you're weak. Judge is the righteous judge.
Okay, he actually,
It is honor when you wrongfully judge, someone weak in the faith, or whoever else is saying, whether it's physically, whatever. You don't wrongfully judge, period. You don't prejudge, you get to the facts and you make sure that you're not guilty of what you're condemning them of. Like you said,
very good.
both are leading out your eyes. Because, you know, we have to, judgment is involved in all of this. We all make judgments, and we need to make sure we don't wrongfully judge.
Very good. In verse 24, my verse, I got the New American Standard, says abundant honor. Does anybody else have something different than abundant in verse greater? Okay. This is one of few on the honor passages that actually says a greater honor. So I think that's part of it. I think that shows they've shot up the food chain here in regards to how much care and respect and why. Why would God need to focus? Why would God ask us to focus? Not that we don't focus on every one of us in this, but why would God ask us to have special care for these individuals? Okay, read that, Roger.
That there be no division in the body.
And that what? And that what? After it says, after that.
But that the members have the same care one for another, one suffering without one.
Yeah.
We have to understand, and I know we do, but then again, none of us, I think, probably really fully, how much God hates to break up a community. God wants unity in us. He hates division. And in all of our dealings, and on this subject, we need to make sure that we're not trying to disrupt the unity. That is supposed to characterize us. What Jesus prayed for, and we're to endeavor to keep that unity of spirit and common spirit. God hath abhorred his brethren are divided and prejudged and do all those big things. God doesn't want us to be divided. We can be united. And that's each of us a personal responsibility to take that unity.
Very good.
Ron, you said earlier that, you know, the honor, the respect that Christians have for one another is equal, that everybody's honored equally. And I appreciate that point, and I think that's correct. The exception to that would be here, that it's a little bit counterintuitive, but the ones that get greater honor are the ones that, well, using quotes, deserve it least or are struggling the most. That
writer says here, no matter whatever the circumstance that's causing the weaker vessel to take place, or causing a weakness. Weakness is linked to fragility, or being fragile. So something is fragile, which means when something's fragile, it can eventually break if there's nothing to help repair it. Which means if we don't assist or attend to or put focus on something that's broke, we have a flood in the church building. So we didn't. Guys. You came help, Sam. So things happen. If an let's do something different. If HVAC units go down in this church building, everybody's going to be freezing today. If we just never fix it over the winter, it's going to be hard to really worship here comfortably. So when a brethren is broke, when our brother or sister is broke or fragile, God's telling us to take preference. Jesus went for the people who needed it. Everybody always wondered why he's eating with the sinners and why he's eating with the sick and why he's eating with all these people and healing all these people. Because that's who he wanted to focus on, because that's who needed him. The Pharisees are so focused on need and who needs to. They wonder why somebody like Jesus wouldn't be focused on them. Because he's trying to those who were searching for a repair. And the spiritually weak in our church, God tells us special honor, as Michael said, contrary to, the only time you see really a contrary to equal, that is the time when you're supposed to give special preference. And there's going to be another one later when we get to widows, by the way. There's going to be another special one there. We'll finish that up on Wednesday. I appreciate all the comments. I wanted to get through more than 3 verses. But I really appreciate it.